Hello and welcome back to DIY Inventor. In today's video, I am going to restore an old power supply and turn it into a variable power supply. First, I have this 12-volt supply that used to belong to an air cooler. One of its circuits was damaged and couldn't be fixed. I opened it up and it was really dirty, so the very first step was to clean it. I won't be using the old circuits, so I removed them. Next, I added a power switch and a 220-volt female socket. Gluing the components securely in place. Then I needed to make a slot for the digital meter. I used my Dremel tool to cut the hole. And to get a nice clean edge, I used a chisel. After that, I sanded off all the old paint. To make the voltage variable, I am using a 300-watt DC to DC buck converter. I drilled holes in the case for the potentiometers and attached the knobs perfectly. One part of the supply's plastic body was broken, so I had to repair it. You can see how I fixed this here. I filled the broken holes using super glue and cement. Once it dried, I ground it down and sanded it smooth. Next, I wired the 220 volt socket to the switch and attached an LED to the buck converter. For the main power, I am using a 12 volt and a 24 volt supply as the input for the buck converter. I mounted them inside the case and added a piece of PVC sheet so the supplies won't move out of place. I connected their outputs in parallel and wired them straight to the input of the buck converter. I also added an extra 12 volt power supply just to run the meter and the cooling fan. I fixed this small supply in the corner of the case. I connected the 220 volt wires to the main socket to give it power. Now for the meter connections. The meter has three main wires. The black and red wires connect directly to the extra 12 volt supply to turn the screen on. The yellow wire is the signal wire, which connects to the positive output of the buck converter. I wired the fan and the meter's power in parallel to that extra 12-volt supply. Then I attached the final output wires to the buck converter. The two thick wires on the converter are for measuring the amps, so I connected them to the output. At first, I used heavy wire for this, but it created a mess and the case wouldn't close. So I swapped them out for some thinner wires. The power supply is almost finished. The last thing left to do is paint it. Please let me know what you think of the final look in the comments below. Now, let's test it out. I will check the minimum and maximum voltages of the supply, and then test running a few different things on it to see how it handles the load.